Hello guys, I hope you are very, very well. It's Reedy here with the incredible Kylie Charlton of Hodges Sandringham, but much more famous for being generally one of the queens of consumers. So happy to have her on board. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. I love that tagline, Queen of Consumers.
Queen of Consumers, did you like that, did you?
I love that.
I thought you might like that.
My new hashtag.
You should do that. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
Write that down. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and please feel free to revisit. Make sure that you ask any questions, and make sure that you listen to it. We're going to strip it to a podcast as well, so you can listen to it in the car. I'm super keen on having this young lady with us because the amount of people that I speak to about you, and this is true.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's and I'm talking consumers, customers as well, by the way. Yeah, they have got this opinion. This is why I call you the Queen of Consumers. That your following with regards to client base and so on and so forth is so fiercely loyal. I haven't heard it from any other agent, pretty much.
That's good. I like that. I like that feedback.
It's really, really good. So guys, for those of you that don't know how this Sold by Live things works, I generally get someone who knows a heck of a lot more about a lot of stuff, more than me, to come on, have a chat to us and give us their thoughts on certain elements of the real estate game, business, so on and so forth. I'm super keen. Obviously, I'm drilling into why your reputation is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, any questions? Please feel free to jot them down. But firstly, the way that we roll is human first.
Yes. Agent
second.
Yes.
So tell me, who's Kylie?
Well, Kylie is a human and an agent all wrapped into one. I haven't been able to separate that. Real estate agents. Generally, they live real estate, so you live and breathe it. So that's who I am, I think, and I have tried to find a hobby, but I keep coming back to looking at properties everywhere I go. I'm married. I have 3 beautiful boys,
age
14, 12, and 9.
Yep.
I live in my core area, which is Sandringham, and I love the beach and love the snow.
You love the beach and the snow. Why anybody would volunteer to go to somewhere colder than where they are is beyond me. I don't know whether it must be because of me and British when we're used to getting rained on and all that sort of jazz.
Well, I think it's the adrenaline of, flying down a mountain on beautiful snow at 1,000,000 miles an hour, feeling like a rock star.
Oh, well, that's why you're a good salesperson, I guess. All right, so 3 boys. So you've obviously got a couple in senior school now.
Correct.
Any of those guys got any sort of the tendencies that their mother has with regards to salesmanship and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes. My middle child will either be a super real estate agent or a lawyer. I think he's probably going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Right.
He definitely negotiates pocket money, he negotiates time on the PlayStation, he negotiates chores, he delegates his job, so he'll give the youngest child some lollies if the youngest child does his job for him. He's got a very, very quick and intelligent mind.
Yeah, nice. Good stuff. So we'll keep an eye out for him then. Now, let's just quickly dig into the backstory from a real estate point of view. So you've said, you live and breathe real estate, and I think that's probably going to allude to one of the answers to one of the questions that I'm going to fire away at you. I'm pretty confident that you're going to say that you'll agree. But tell me the backstory. So how long ago did we start?
I started as a receptionist at a company called EJ Doherty in Northcote.
Okay.
28 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. And after everybody who's new to real estate, listen to this. After my first 12 months, they were going to sack me. I know that they opened a new franchise, or there was a new franchise opening. John Harrington Earl now, opened a new franchise of EJ Doherty Fitzroy, and he said, well, I'll take the rubbish because I need a cheap receptionist. They were going to get rid of me anyway. So That's the backstory.
Oh, magic. And then from there, how long did it take before you got into sales?
A long time.
Yeah.
So I didn't back myself. For a very long time, I was in property management for about 20 years. I was in property management, and I didn't back myself. I didn't back myself to make the money myself. I wanted the salary.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started my Charlton King business that I threw myself into sales. So for all of those people out there that don't back yourself, honestly, I wish I could go back 20 years and have started in sales 20 years ago. Imagine the business that I have now.
Do you find, like, when you think back about your property management years, was there always that itch that needed scratching, or was it, did you feel that you were wasting your ability almost?
No, I wasn't wasting my ability because I didn't know what my ability was.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I didn't know how good it could be.
Yeah.
So I wasn't wasting my ability, but I was a really damn good property manager.
Right.
So I gave my all to property management, as I do now to sales. But yes, there were a few times where I kind of wanted to dabble in. I spoke to a few people to see if I could get a role in sales, and then felt the pressure of sales and having to generate, and then went back to what I knew, and what I knew really well, which was property management. So I just kept folding back to the salary week in, week out.
Yeah, okay. And can you, I mean, I'm not sure if you could, would you be able to pinpoint like a specific moment or a specific like small period of time which tipped you over the edge and made you think, nah, screw this, I'm going for it?
I was really forced into it in a way, because I opened my business and thought I would employ a salesperson. I was running property management at the time. I thought I would employ a salesperson, and a friend of mine said, I want you to sell my house. And I said, are you sure? Nice.
Nice.
And she
that
said,
is a convincing presentation, isn't it?
And she said, I trust you. I know you'll do a great job. I want you to sell my house. And I think I tried to convince her to sell with the opposition.
Good work.
And she convinced me that I was the right person. That's what started it.
Right.
So I went, oh, hang on a minute. This is really good. 6 weeks and you're done. Pretty good fee. I could do this. And that was my starting. And I was negotiating in property management. Property management is a constant negotiation. You negotiate rent. You negotiate whether the house is going to be kept clean. You're constantly negotiating with both tenants and landlords. So I found negotiating the sale very easy. And I read the play really well, and I've always been able to read the play well. We got a great result, and that really catapulted me into sales. And one of my great competitors said, oh yes, to this vendor, oh yes, Kylie Charlton, you've had her in. She's a great property manager, I think, isn't she?
Nah.
And I thought, so clever. Hope you're watching, Christian.
Nah, busted. Wonderful. So you open up Charlton King.
Yes.
And how long were you there for?
I ran that from 2010 to 2018. So I registered the business in 2010 with one property under management.
Nice. Let's start somewhere.
Well, my brother said to me, I need you to rent out my property. And I said, no, not really. I don't want to open the agency yet. I've still got a little bubba. And he said, well, it's going to sit vacant for a really long time until you're ready.
Right.
So I registered the business, and that's how it started. So it was really on the fly. Nice.
And I want to touch on your business journey from starting with one property to the business that it became, because that's, reputation-wise, like I said, phenomenal reputation around this area, Bayside, and so on and so forth. But giving it a crack, like actually just going, you know what, I just got to give it a crack. Can you just say one or two things about that whole process of sort of learning on the job and so on and so forth?
Yeah, that was really hard. It was I hadn't been in sales before. I only knew property management. I'd worked alongside sales departments, but property management and sales were so completely different. And they didn't really talk unless there was hey, I've got a referral for you, or somebody bought and here's a property to manage.
Yeah.
So I went to seminars and conferences. I watched my competitions. What's Richard doing? What's Peter doing? You know, that sort of thing. So I watched what they were doing. I went to open for inspections, and you know, it was a really hard task, learning on the job, and I didn't have anyone to ask. So I couldn't just call a colleague and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? And so many times I wanted to ring one of the guys across the road and say, hey, what would you do? Yeah. So it was really hard starting on my own. Conferences, I read a lot. I watched a lot of videos, video interviews. The real estate gym was huge for me. I learned a lot from that. Yeah. And from the conferences that I went to, it was really tough. And, you know, in hindsight, I wouldn't be where I am had I not gone through that journey. But in hindsight, it would have been so much easier just to go and knock on the door and say, hey, can I have a job?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Because, you know, because you still attend conference after conference after conference. You always seem to be learning. I always see you on the front row.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd.
Oh, no, that's absolutely fine. We always see you on the front row, which for me, it's a really good sort of almost like a leadership example of leadership within the industry to, you know, make sure that, you know, you're humble enough to keep going and keep learning and keep, you know, sharpening tools and so on and so forth. You mentioned just then about, you know, in hindsight, it would have been easier to just go and knock on the door and get a job. And we talked, just before we started, we talked about that whole onus of being the business owner.
Yes.
So just mention that again, you know, why did you find it so challenging and, you know, ultimately resulted in you coming to Hodges?
So I was doing, you know, 2 or 3 jobs really. I was listing and selling, you know, great volume of properties. Business was really profitable. 3 young boys at home. I've got an amazing husband, but I was never there. I was always at home, but I was on the phone, or I'd lock myself in the pantry and pull the door to so the kids couldn't get in so I could make my calls. So I really was always on. There was no downtime at all. And running the business and also listing the amount of properties that I was listing, I was doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs. And I've got a fantastic assistant colleague in Phoebe, but I didn't feel that
Phoebe?
But I didn't feel that I could just lump it all on her and go off on holidays for a couple of weeks. So whenever I was on holidays, I was always ringing in. I was always checking in. So I didn't get any downtime, and it's hard. I honestly find it really hard to switch off. Yeah. I'm always on. I was in Hamilton Island recently and then up at Mount Buller at the Snow, and I can tell you exactly how much every property on Hamilton Island will sell for and exactly how much every chalet at Mount Buller will sell for. It's just what I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look, and you know, to know that that's what you love and that's what you want to do, you know, that in itself is a phenomenal gift that not many people get to experience. Yeah. As I'm sure you would agree, loads of people in our industry, they're just doing this because, right? Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're doing it for, you know, I mean, we all do things to get paid, but, you know, they're doing it for the paycheck. They're not doing it for the gig, if that makes sense.
And that's okay to start with, because that's the reason that I got into real estate. One of my very good girlfriends at school, her dad was a real estate agent, and her mother drove a Mercedes. Her father drove a Rolls Royce. They lived in a 2-story house with a pool, and I thought, oh God, that's what I want. So I'm putting a pool in at the moment. Nice. I don't drive. My husband doesn't drive a Rolls Royce. He's got a Mercedes, but you know, it's all kind of worked out really well. They had a tennis court, we don't. But that's the reason that I got into it, for the money. But then I actually found out that it's not about the money. It's about caring for the people, doing the right thing every single time, and the money comes. So do the right thing and the money will come.
I tell you what, if that isn't a good segue into some of our questions, I don't know what is. Hey, I'm getting really good at these segues. I am. I'm getting so good at these. All right, now, so let's get stuck into this whole psyche of consumer versus profit, consumer versus tech. And that's one of the things I wanted to make. It's always seems to be consumer versus whatever. Now, give us a bit of let us open the lid and let's have a bit of an insight into what you just said in a bit of greater detail. So you're saying it's more about the people, not about the money. If you focus on the people, the money will come. Right. Let's unpack that a little bit more if we can. So I know that you're obviously a director. So, and by people, there's also that whole internal aspect of things as well. People are looking after the people, and then in turn they will look after the business, so on and so forth. But what do you think it was that got you into this mode in the first place? Is it the fact that being and I'll say this, because women do tend to have a higher EQ, they tend to have a higher level of emotional intelligence on the whole. Yeah. Would you say that part of it was being a little bit more sensitive towards situations that gave you that insight? What do you reckon it was?
I think that I do have the reading the play is that emotional intelligence. EQ, yeah. So I've always been able to read the play well. And determine, what somebody really wants, what they're really looking for. And I think most of my clients are not looking for a transaction. They're looking for the best result with the best service. And then the relationship comes after that. They don't want a new best friend. I don't want to be their new best friend. But if we happen to become friends along the way, then that is fantastic. But what people want first is the result and then the human factor. Yeah. That I am a person and I do care for their situation and I'm not just about the money. It's not just, Tom Panels calls it commission breath. Yes, it's a great saying. And that, that makes me feel really uncomfortable. I would hate to think that somebody out there thinks that I'm just in their property to make money, or I'm trying to recommend to take an offer or make a sale just for the money. I don't want people to think that of me. How do you, without telling all your trade secrets, obviously, how do you go about conveying that to Mr. and Mrs. Vendor across the table without coming across as your stereotypical real estate wanker of, I just want to get you the best price possible, which is code for saying, I want a really nice commission, thank you very much, in a lot of instances. Well, I think I'm fortunate enough that in the area that I work, we have some highly maybe emotionally intelligent people. Most people, and I think in most walks of life, will be able to see through that real estate wankerish, whatever it was you said. I think most people can see through that. So when they feel a connection, with me or with another agent, that's who they'll go with. And I think asking a lot of questions is really good. Trying to understand their whole situation. I had someone recently say to me, I think you really understand what we want. And that was just based on a whole lot of questions. And is this sort of stuff, because I had a situation when I was chatting to a young lad who just recently come into the industry. He'd gone to a big training session from a HQ, come back almost brainwashed because he'd been shown a process and so on and so forth. What you're talking about, what I love to talk about, that whole actually paying attention, and what my mentor Rick Russian says, that whole tuning in before you broadcast. Is that coachable, or is it something that you need? Is there a bit of DNA involved in that as well? No, I think that's definitely coachable, because in the first 12 months or 2 years, I would go out to a property and I was so desperate to get the listing that I would just say whatever I thought they wanted to hear. Yeah. But it wasn't genuine. Which is the trap that everyone falls into. Yeah. It definitely, it's coachable, and it definitely comes back to, I think, having some runs on the board. I certainly felt much more comfortable after I had some runs on the board that I could talk about. So it's coachable, but it also comes with a little bit of time in the industry, I think, or time in sales.
I think, and that's one thing that I think new agents, young agents, or new to the industry or what have you, that is the big misconception. Is it's money very quickly, when in essence you do need to have the battle scars. You need to have those hits in order to sort of find out who you are as an agent and whatnot, and how you rock and roll. Cool. So now, with regards, so one of the big questions that I've had asked of me on a few occasions through various offices, I thought you'd be the best person to ask. Where do we draw the line with respect to going the extra mile? I hate that phrase, but going that extra distance for your consumer. Where is the line between that and bad business sense, or bad business decisions? Because I'm sure I know I've made those sorts of mistakes, and you may have too, where it's ended up being detrimental towards your business, whether it's because of time consumption or dollar consumption or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Where do you know? Where do you sense that line is?
I think every situation is really different. You need to focus your energy on the people that give back to you. And when I say give back to you, the people that are engaged with you, your advocates, the people that advocate for you. And we've got a beautiful restaurant down in St Kilda called Donovan's. We took 30 people to Donovan's because we wanted them to know how important they were to our business. They were past clients. Some of them weren't even clients, had never sold with us before, but are advocates of me and Charlton King at the time. So little gifts here and there, but going the extra mile doesn't necessarily mean you have to take people to Donovan's or you have to give them movie vouchers. You just have to be grateful. Showing gratitude to people. Going the extra mile might be tagging them in on Facebook on something that so a particular lady loves her golden retrievers. If there's something on Facebook, I might tag her in. Going the extra mile doesn't have to be monetary. It can be just really simple. And spending a lot of money on the people that bring you a lot of business is good business sense. Yeah,
absolutely. Really, really good point that you make there for me is the fact that the general misconception about customer service means that it's expensive, or to go the extra mile is like the whole Glenn Coutinho buy a florist sort of thing. I mean, I know he goes ballistic with it, but for the vast majority of people in our game, they can't afford that sort of stuff.
And you don't have to do that. Remembering somebody's birthday, don't even remember it, put it in your diary. To remember somebody's birthday, that's really important to people. To remember their children's names is really important to people. Glenn sends my kids gifts. He's done some training with us when we were at Charlton King for free. He came down to Sandringham from Hawthorn and did some training. He's just a really giving guy. But it doesn't have to cost much. No.
And I think just having your clients in the back of your mind
always
is the best way as a start for 10. If you're a new agent starting out, do what Kylie's saying. You can understand what's relevant and what's important to certain people and to your clients. If you've done that, if you've asked the right questions, you will find out these sorts of things like interests or hobbies or so on, so what's important to them. And do something like that. If there's an article that's relevant, then flick it across and say, hey, saw this article and thought of you. How much does that cost?
Yeah. And it's just, it really is that you care about your client, you care about your past clients, you care about your purchases. It has to be genuine, and they'll feel that. They will feel that you're constantly looking out for them.
100%. 100%. Now, on that, so sort of with regards to dollar consumption and so on and so forth, it also ties into the whole tech space.
Yeah.
Because lots and lots of products out there now that are trying to, do their best to take their piece of the real estate pie. Good on them for that. But there's a lot of stuff out there that is, you could call it a little bit smoke and mirrors. So when it comes to that sort of balance, and I know that you were at REA Momentum on the one end of the debate there between tech and human interaction.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm sure, without knowing, I'm sure the volume of people that want to say hello to you would be that you would have to have some sort of tech background in terms of being able to keep up with all of this stuff. Surely, or no?
Yes, I do find it difficult to keep up with tech.
Yeah.
Responding to everyone, so many different ways that people can get in touch.
Yeah.
This is going to shock you, I'm a pen and paper girl. I write things down. I write all my messages down to return calls and things like that. But in terms of automating, we automate certain emails and text messages to go at certain times.
Yeah.
But I don't have, I'm great on Facebook. I now know Instagram, but I don't have a great tech background.
Yeah. Well, look, and that in itself is something that we need to highlight. It shows that you don't need a lot of this stuff to be very, very good at what you do. And I reckon through ignorance, shall we call it, through not knowing, I reckon you probably save so much time not needing to learn some of this crap.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the service side of things, from a process point of view, do you make a conscious effort to go out of your way with these things, or because it needs to be genuine, are there times where you've got a client where you've just done a perfectly good, serviceable job, but there's not been that sort of inspiration, or is that something that you find comes naturally to you with every client?
No, I think it comes naturally with every client. There are certain clients that you have a better connection with, though.
Yes.
There's definitely certain clients you have a better connection with, but it does come naturally with every client that I choose. So the vendors that I choose to work with and they choose to work with me. I think it happens for a reason. Matt talks about energy and vibration. Matt Steinway talks about, I talked about him as if he was just my great friend that I've been talking on the phone. And I do believe people are attracted to certain people. So, the people that I deal with and that I want to work with are people that I will keep in touch with down the track for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Every time Richmond wins a game,
yeah,
I send a text message to one of my old clients because he's a mad Richmond fan. It's just little things.
You know what? I think a point that you made there is absolute gold. How you talk about not just the vendor selecting you, but you selecting the vendor as well. I've been saying this to a few people as well. This process of selecting an agent and so on, it is a dialogue. It isn't a monologue where you give your performance and then hopefully you get selected for Broadway sort of thing. It is a dialogue because ultimately if you take on, and invariably, the clients that you're a little bit, I'm not sure about them, when you take them on,
goes pear-shaped.
They always end up going pear-shaped. So I think that is a massive point that everybody needs to take on board is part of your ethos around being the queen of consumer land is knowing which consumers you want to dance with.
Yeah. And that's, to the new agents out there, you can't do that in your first 12 months or 2 years. You just have to take what you can get. So, don't miss out on a deal or, a listing because I've said I choose who I want to deal with. I didn't in the first 2 years. I do now. Yeah.
So how do you deliver that to vendors when you've decided you don't want to deal with them?
I recommend another agent that I think that they would be more suitable to. So
Yeah.
somebody either within my agency,
Yeah.
or I might recommend them to a competitor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So you still service them to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, new agents, you're absolutely right. You know, you don't want to just start turning away business in your first 12 months because you don't think they're very nice people.
Yeah.
It's probably not a good idea. But at the same time, what they can do in that first 12, 24 months is use that knowledge to not get too personal about stuff. That was a mistake I made.
Oh, that's so hard. Everything's personal in the first 12 or 24 months.
Oh,
everything's personal.
How much does it hurt when someone doesn't like it?
When one of your great friends doesn't use you.
Oh, that'll hurt.
That kills. Yeah.
That'll hurt.
Yeah.
It's a good job none of my mates live in Australia.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So, you know, it's very hard to detach yourself, but it's so much better when you do, because it doesn't stab you in the heart.
Yeah. So with that, when you've had a situation, as we all have, where it's not gone so well, and you with your consumer mindset of, you know, wanting to make sure that, you know, it's the consumer that comes first, you know, that process will then reflect in an income point of view. When it's hit the fan, when it's hit the fan royally, how do you manage that both internally and externally? How do you process that?
I can't say, Phoebe, we've never had a situation that's hit the fan royally, have we? I can't say we've ever had that situation.
Would you have had a situation where vendors that your perception of them was good at the start, and then the relationship just wasn't what you thought it was going to be?
No. No. We you can't over-service anyone. I don't think that should be a term, but we service people to such a great degree that the relationship can never break down. The only time there's ever any hesitation is over the end result. Yeah. So the process is always perfect. You know, as perfect as it can be. We've got a checklist, you know, this long of everything that has to occur during a campaign and before and after. But you know, if somebody's not that happy with their price, you know, I was talking to a client this morning, actually, she's looking at buying another property, and I was talking to her. We sold her property for her 18 months ago, and at the time it was a great result. But she wanted more. She expected more. She was a bit upset at the time. We're great mates because, you know, luckily the market dipped, and she now feels really lucky that she got the price that she got. But after the case, she did say, I got emotional. I'm really sorry. It's a good result. You know, that sort of thing. We're good friends now, and I think if you continue to keep in touch with your clients, if they're not happy, make them happy somehow. Nobody ever bends their client's arm and makes them sign a contract of sale. So do the best job you can do. Know in your heart that you've done the best job you can do on it, and you can stand at the end of the day, stand proud and go, that is the best, that was, you know, the best outcome for everyone. Yeah. Now
I've just nipped another little tidbit there. So you say that a lot of it is intuitive. I think that's probably a good word for you. Is intuition. But then you have defined it with a process, checklist, so on and so forth, that I'm sure you would have refined over time.
Yeah.
So with that checklist, with that process, like I said, I'm sure it's as long as my arm, but how simplified does it get? Because I find that a lot of people that start to do checklists, they'll have a series of ticky boxes, but then one ticky box may actually end up referring to like a whole process by itself, or 3 or 4 different things.
No.
So how do you roll?
It's broken down into send a text message after the open for inspection.
Yep.
Take your due diligence to the open for inspection. Tick box for the privacy statement at the open for. It is really dumbed right down to send a card, to write a card, to add the anniversary of the settlement, to diarise the anniversary, to diarise the settlement time, to send we do delay delivery emails. So send, tick box, delay delivery emails sent asking the purchaser when they want to do the final inspection. So we're being proactive all the time, and there's a tick box for everything. And in fact, we went through our checklist for each campaign this morning, and we went back on some check boxes that weren't checked. Right. And just made sure
just tidied up.
Yeah. So it's just looking at those each day and making sure that everything is being done.
That's massive, because at the minute, because I think part of it's through desperation or fear or whatever, because of how interesting the market's been, where people are just sort of, they're just scattergunning approaches, trying to find some sort of magic formula that works, when in essence, top operators like yourself, whether you are, because you'll still have a business focus, of course, but whether you are, consumer experience focused or financially focused or whatever the case may be, the best people in whichever pocket they're in have a very, very simplified process.
Yeah.
Have a simplified process.
You just can't remember everything. You can't remember to do everything automatically.
Yeah.
Well, when you're younger, maybe you can, but then, there needs to be a structured, written process to follow.
Now, I'm going off piece a little bit. With regards to the overall overarching industry, okay, because you've been in the game for as long as you have, and you're very, very observant, because you do go to everything still. You do still keep up and make sure that you don't get long in the tooth like some people that have been in as long as you have got. Right now, the landscape of the industry, I know that market conditions have changed a bit with, APRA, interest rates, all that sort of stuff, which is good. But aside from that, just buyer vendor mechanics, just general practice level, how do you see the landscape with regards to aversion or obsession with technology, how that's impacting practice, and how do you see the game moving forward? Because one of the most common debates, and I had this with Michael Choi last week. Went out lunch with Michael last week, and we were debating this whole online auction versus in-person auction. I personally believe that there is room for both. Yeah. He feels that is just going to take over at some point.
Yeah.
General landscape, how do you see it on the horizon? How do you see it playing out?
I think most people, and in terms of the market, we've now got an understanding of where the market is. The market's changed, there's no doubt about it. We now know that it's stabilised. We're going to have this reasonably equal vendor-buyer market for some time to come. But in terms of technology, I think there'll always be some scepticism. People like live auctions because they can see who their competition is. On an online auction, can they see who their competition is? And that all comes down to somebody like me who is quite emotionally intelligent, I would say. I can't read somebody behind a computer screen. I would rather, but maybe that's the negotiator in me, I would rather stand face to face or stand, across the auction from somebody so I can read their body language. And I think from a vendor's point of view, being able to do that, and good auctioneers can, like yourself, you can determine whether to take another bid. So it's not necessarily just about who the competition is, it's about how you as the auctioneer read the play and your interaction with those buyers. So I think you've got a job for a long while yet.
Hopefully. Hopefully. God help me if I haven't. But you're like, when it comes to the listing and selling and so on and so forth, you've got things like DocuSign now, and all those sorts of things which are brilliant bits of kit in terms of speeding things up and taking out snail mail and all that sort of stuff.
I think you need to be really careful about using technology all the time.
Right.
Nobody sends letters anymore, so guess who sends letters? Nobody writes cards anymore, so guess who writes cards? So And how many times, just think about your own email inbox. How many times you just go delete, 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 unsubscribe, unsubscribe. You'd really like to read some of that info, but there's just so much there. Whereas if somebody sent me something in the mail or sent me a handwritten card and said, hey, Kylie, which I'll probably do to you, Andy, I'll say, hey, Andy, thanks so much for coming to my office and doing this podcast, Facebook Live. It's different. 100%. It's different from a text or an email. So I think there's always going to be the need for both. Yeah. You just need to determine which is the smarter play.
And going back to the original point, I think what you were saying about referring to letters and doing those sorts of things and playing to your strengths in that respect as well. That is a very personal human touch that right now you would fear is very difficult to replicate. Yes. If at all possible to replicate via almost any level of technology. I mean, you can even do a video or something like that and do a personalized video and so on, and that can help to a degree, but something tangible like that, it's going to be a long time, if ever, that will ever be replaced.
Yes. And if you think about how the selling of somebody's house, apartment, townhouse is so emotional. They don't want to deal with a computer to sell their house. They don't want to deal with a computer to list their house. Otherwise, some of those online businesses would have got up and they would have done really well, but they haven't. The people sitting in the chair opposite them that can talk through all the situations are still winning in the real estate field because it's an emotional game. It's such a big decision to choose which agent you're going to go with. That's the biggest decision. That's the hardest decision that the vendors have to make throughout the whole campaign, apparently, according to some research, is which agent they're going to choose.
100%. Of course it is. I mean, at the end of the day, you're putting your faith and your biggest asset in some random person's hands. So it is going to be that leap of faith. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Absolutely brilliant. Have you got any final messages that you want to put out there to the game, to the industry, to our peers? Yes.
Have faith in yourself. Work really hard. Work really long. You don't have to work really hard. It's not hard. Work really long. Do the right thing by people. Connection with your client comes well before commission. And what I thought for a long time was that anyone that was a decent real estate agent made $1 million. The $1 million agent word was going around a bit like, the what's my why went around for a while. But that $1 million agents, I thought I had to write $1 million to be any good. And in my second year, when I didn't write $1 million, I was really devastated. So you don't have to write $1 million. I think that's something really important for young people getting in. It takes time to get where you want to be, but if you work long enough and if you have the clients front of mind, you'll get there.
100%.
Yeah.
I think
work the long game.
I think that is the perfect way to end. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got some value. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Guys, rock and roll. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, on Instagram, and I'm sure Kylie, if you want to get in touch with her directly, you are rather easy to find on Facebook, Instagram, or obviously you're here at Odgers Sandringham as well. If you do have any questions or doubts about how you're going about it, this lady here is the person you want to talk to. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.